Trump has taken control of Washington, D.C. police and deployed the National Guard like he said. And he also said that Los Angeles, Oakland, New York City, Chicago, and Baltimore could be next. D.C. is obviously not a state. It's a special district, and the president has the authority because of how it's structured to override those controls far more easily, as he's just done. And if you're looking for more information about how the existing city that I talked about yesterday ties into the Freedom Cities, I wrote up a history of that in the Substack in my bio. It's free. Moving on. The pattern here is clear based on fascist history. First is political domination. Undermine the governors and mayors in oppositionally political areas, cities and states, and show them as unable to keep order. There's a lot of propaganda value because on camera you can show chaos and disorder, and then you can show federal forces fixing it. In doing this, you can override state control over law enforcement by forcing them to kind of be within the same hierarchy as federal forces. You can create federal districts within cities as sort of public safety zones, if you will, and you can suppress political opposition by limiting gatherings, stopping protests, and kind of setting up patrols, protections, national security measures around polling places. The way that it's usually done comes in phases. The first phase is the initial justification and deployment. It's declaring a city out of control and intervening federally. You send the federal forces and you get the media buy-in. The second is going to be entrenchment. The deployments are extended for whatever reason, and then you take over accessory functions like normal policing or infrastructure security. Phase 3 would be legal normalization. You lock in the control either through executive orders or through legislation, and you establish those public safety zones. These zones more than likely would supersede state law and be under federal control. The fourth would be, of course, expansion, which it's basically moving it into other areas, probably more than likely for any political opposing areas, and replicating this time and time again as it becomes the norm. We've seen a lot of this before in kind of non-direct fascist actions in the United States. During the Civil War Reconstruction, there was military districts, and during COINTELPRO, there was infiltration of local jurisdictions, and then post 9/11, federal agencies then took over key city cores, and temporary measures have had a history of sticking around. I think some key phrases to watch out for is if you hear something like restoring order, that could signal the merging of the local government into a federal command structure. Protecting federal assets would be expanding protection zones, and that would be far outside of a courthouse or military installation or whatever. And election integrity is definitely a signal for interference and enhanced federal oversight of things like polling places. And it's not totally hopeless yet. It's difficult and not as appealing to do what we can do right now, but some of those things include video and go live on every interaction with law enforcement. Make sure that you have metadata and timestamped, upload them to the cloud, set your device up to try to do that, and go live when you can for things like any protests or anything when the police are in their army numbers and acting aggressive. File FOIA requests for things like deployment orders, arrest logs, and interagency agreements. The more requests there are, the more pressure there is to exist, and it's harder to ignore them when they're coming in large numbers. You want to force them to have the data available to just reply to people. Connect with the civil groups and the legal observers that are already operating within your area. Actively share reporting that's coming from the civil liberty groups that you trust, whether that be the NAACP, the ACLU, or whoever. Have local watchdogs and organizations that you trust, share them with your community. Hell, for larger ones, put them in the comments. Why credible organizations matter, just beyond the fact that they're large organizations, is the fact that a lot of times the raw footage clips that people share are easily dismissed as taken out of context. And Lord knows that in today's environments, they're going to call them fake news. And support your local leaders who are already pushing back. When the news broke earlier today regarding the other 5 cities that he's named so far, local leaders already started reacting. Support your governor, support your mayor, support your legislators who are speaking out about this. As the political pressure mounts, it becomes much harder for this bullshit to slide through. The reality is the guardrails of our democracy are being dismantled actively in front of our eyes. And every abuse that's happening needs a timestamp, a witness, and a file put together. If these things continue to happen, the history books are already very clearly written on what happens next. So document, connect, and prepare, because it is much easier for us to try to make dents now and to compile those records than it is to try to dig them out of the scraps later on.